All right, it's time. Hello and welcome, welcome. I'm Susan Marie Almquist out of Oregon, the Chief People Officer at MyCORE and host of this very special inaugural edition of a new MyCORE webinar series. I'm joined today by MyCORE's founder and CEO and my longtime friend, Nathan Bourne. Nathan, how are you and where are you today?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. I am in Jacksonville, Florida, here in my office, downtown Jacksonville. I've got this window in front of me. I'm looking at some palm trees, and I'd say partly cloudy, but about 80 degrees out. So no complaints. Yeah.
Oh, it's terrific. We've got a little bit of snow here in the Pacific Northwest, but glad to know you've got sunny climes there. And, I think that today's topic is the perfect one to launch our webinar series with, because people are really at the core, no pun intended, of just so much of business success, not to mention life. And how to master the art and science of people, today's topic. It sounds like it could be a TED Talk. And in fact, this first portion, as I've experienced it with you before, is not unlike a TED Talk. And I'd love actually for you to kick us off today, Nathan, if you would, sharing with us some of your kind of guiding philosophies and just how that can lead to building world-class teams, which I know is part of what's drawn people here today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to do that and to kind of unpack that together. I often like to share a little bit about my life, and who I am. It helps people get a little bit of a reference point and some context. It also, I've learned, acts as a disclaimer, because I can sometimes say some ridiculous off-the-wall things, and if I free apologize for it, people tend to be a little more understanding and lenient. So I'm going to do that. But a little of my personal story. I am from a really big family. If you know me personally, you know that this is a big part of my identity, the Bourne identity, if you will, and being fourth of 9 children, growing up with very limited resources. We got scrappy pretty early, and we learned to survive, frankly. And at a pretty young age, I decided that school and athletics were going to be kind of my meal ticket. That was what I was going to lean into and kind of find my path through. So I did just that. And I took it very seriously. I took academics very seriously. I took athletics very seriously. And then fast forward to graduating high school, I, was blessed to be able to wrestle at the University of Pennsylvania and, embark on this journey of being an Ivy League student and a Division I athlete. And that led to entrepreneurship and to leadership and a number of other things over the past, several years now, being 34 years old, getting up there. But I'd like to just give a little bit of context for that, because I've had to really get in touch with who I am, as I think we all do, whether we're intentional about it or we kind of are forced to do it because the results of our lives are not where they want to be, or our mental health isn't where we want it to be. And I've kind of just been aware. I think actually you said this to me. You said, Nathan, wow, you're really self-aware. And at the time, I thought it was a compliment. I took it as a compliment, but I think you were saying, wow, you're really sure of yourself. I think you were calling me like, a little overly confident. No, I'm joking. But I was like, oh, self-aware. That's nice. I've heard other people have said it other ways, but I like that one, self-aware. And it's not because I think too highly of myself, as much as it is I've spent a good amount of time with myself. And I think that's a really important relationship, right? That a lot of us overlook. We autopilot through. Or we get distracted by all the things that are vying for our time and energy, and we don't spend a lot of intentional time with oneself. And here's the thing too, just to be clear, I'm not the type of person that like goes off into solitude. I don't like go and, meditate. I probably should. You're not going to find me in downward dog very often. Like I'm a mover and a shaker. I'm a goer, right? But I'm like aware and present in all of those moments, so that I can be constantly course correcting and learning and building and polishing and just trying to be a good student. So some time ago, about 5 years ago, I wanted to find a way to like illustrate and communicate this kind of way, this guiding principle, this sort of this like fascination that I had with people, not in like a creepy way, but just the human experience for that matter. So I kind of went down a path, intellectually, spiritually even, and it is a culmination of things I've read, seminars I've attended. There's nothing new under the sun, I don't claim to be like the inventor of what I'm about to share. Just a good student of it, and a communicator, and hopefully I can share it in simple terms and simple pictures that it reminds us all of something that we already know, which is that people are centric and we should act accordingly. So just to give that one more detail, I want everyone listening, whether you're here live or checking the recording or however you've kind of embarked, if you know me really well, if we're just meeting for the first time, that I'm kind of this hybrid, this cyborg between a person that was born into poverty and given limited education, frankly, and this person that went to an Ivy League school and reached high levels of athletics and have been blessed to build a really great company today. And I like to share both of those things. One, because I've spent a lot of money on therapy to understand that. And two, because you're going to hear things that sound like it's something that somebody would say from the country club. And you're also going to hear things that sound like it's somebody from the trailer park. And both of those things are true, okay? Both are true. You can take the boy out of the, whatever, but you can't take the whatever out of the boy. So that's my disclaimer, all right? I'm going to shoot you straight. I'm going to keep it real with you. But I think it'll be an intellectual conversation. I think it'll be something that's thought-provoking, but hopefully something that's real and raw as well. So, yeah.
And it really has allowed you to be congruent in your life, Nathan. That time that you spent reflecting on yourself, what I've seen is that it allows you to be congruent, even though it looks like there might be this cyborg effect that you're describing. You are bringing you, whether you're talking about philosophy or where we may go after that, which is where you're taking that philosophy out into the business world.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you and I have known each other for some time, so we have a good perspective on each other's journeys. And obviously it's crossed most recently over the past year or so with this awesome opportunity to build a great company together and to lead a great team. But this is a unique moment in that narrative because to date, we've never really been very public, very on the grid. It's been kind of elusive. I've intentionally stayed off the grid. I've been working on myself and working on this company and working in my relationships. And I think that's something that's like a lost art because there's so much pressure now to post it, to share it, to story it, to capture it. God forbid you just take a mental note, not a picture, right? God forbid you just experience it and rather not package it and put it out there. So it's interesting, even in this very moment, to say, hey, there's a lot of people listening in, and I don't know how they got here. But I'm going to keep the main thing, which is my journey as a person and my people as people. And I think that's a page that everybody could take out of the book, right? That's a note that everybody could apply, whether they're a pastor, they're a CEO, they're an executive, they're entry level in a company, they're a solopreneur. I mean, by the way, the things we're going to be talking about today and in future webinars are going to be people-centric. Therefore, it's going to be about the universal experience of being a person. And it's kind of wild to say, but there's like almost an attack on people for being people. And it's rather interesting, right? So I think we have to come together in this moment, and we've got to be keen, right? We've got to be sharp. We really have to be agile because things change at a much faster rate. And if we don't keep up, like as the human race, we could be in trouble. And I don't mean trouble like extinction, but the numbers don't lie. I mean, we have all-time suicide rates, all-time highs. We have drug addiction. We have major issues with mental health and depression. And yet we live in some of the most abundant times that the entire universe has ever seen, that planet Earth has ever seen. There's some interesting relationship between this that I think is worth slowing down a little bit and exploring. And I'm so thrilled that internally, that's your role, Susan Marie, right? That you take inventory and care for and love on and hold accountable. It's not all just warm and fuzzy. It's like, hey, you don't do this. This is a big no, right? And for anyone on the line, anyone listening that is a parent, you know that you can't always just be feeding your kids cake and ice cream and letting them stay up late. You have to put disciplines in place. You have to say no to things. So it's a high calling. It's a high duty. And I think you're the perfect person at MyCORE for it. And I think that people in other organizations are going to be able to mastermind with you, and say, hey, these are some of the ways we've navigated that. This is some of the ways we've just completely botched it and screwed it up and just barely made it through. But we're going to continue to do better. So I'm looking forward to this conversation today and further. I think it's going to be really rich, really lively. And I'm just thrilled to do it with you, Susan Marie. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Nathan. It is like you're giving me permission to be myself. And as people, right, we get to, if we could really just bring our best forward, what a difference it would be. I mean, so often I think we lose touch because we're not taking the time, just like you're describing, just to be ourselves, to know who that is.
And here's the thing too, I think you're absolutely right. And I think the workplace is a place that we've somehow given permission to not be that, right? Like we've relinquished the power to the workplace. All right. But like, who is this workplace? Like, these are people. These are founders. These are, companies and corporations, shareholders, stakeholders, constituents, contributors, whatever you want to call it. They're all people. Other than that Netflix documentary I watched recently, Gunther, the dog. That's the only dog I know that owns a business. All right. Now that dog is killing it and I get it. That's the exception, not the rule. Most animals don't own businesses. People own them, right? People create cultures. People create teams. People create movements. People create products. People. And I don't care if it's AI or Chat GPT or AR, whatever the exciting new technology is. The human brain's been human braining for a long time. We've got it right. But we're also kind of screwing it up. And that's why this message I'm about to shift into and get into a little bit more presentational mode, as you put it, like little mini TED talk, I'm passionate about, because it's nothing you don't already know. It's nothing we don't already know. It's Mother Goose probably taught it to us. We learned it in church. We learned it from our parents. It's something that we know, but somehow we've gotten out of touch with it. And I just feel compelled. I feel on a mission to restore that
Mm.
and have proper upkeep, right? Proper sustainability, maintenance around it. And then ultimately application, right? How can we be applying these to all aspects of life? So I'm thrilled to do it. And I think this is an exciting way to kind of embark on that journey and debut. And I'll just say this before we shift gears. I aim to be somebody, right, that applies the knowledge, doesn't just have the knowledge. You know, I hadn't gone to school. I was homeschooled until 7th grade, and in a big family with a lot of going on. There wasn't like a real strict curriculum going on. Okay, so my access to education was very limited before 7th grade. So I entered the public school system in 7th grade, and I was like barely reading and writing. Okay, and 6 years later, I'm going to an Ivy League school. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying that to boast or to brag or to impress you. No, that's actually exactly what I'm saying. But no, I'm joking. but in all seriousness, I'm saying it to say that you can condense time frames. You can learn, you can grow, you can develop. No matter what life has dealt you, you can change, you can morph. And just as a disclaimer, before I get into this overarching message, this core value that we live by at MyCORE, known as lead with who. By the way, I do want this to be interactive, and I'm not sure, is there a chat feature? Like, are people able to chat while we're speaking? Because I just want to give people the liberty to kind of participate real time. You know, if it's a thought you want to share, obviously keep it appropriate. If it's a question you have, we are going to get to some Q&A. You know, we're going to leave time for that. But it sounds like maybe we need to open up the chat to everyone. So I think it's available, but somebody maybe try to chat. And you know, this is our first webinar, so like the actual webinar feature we're learning as well, real time. But okay, so saying that to say that I think we're going to be able to make this a lively conversation. And okay, so you see hands raised, and
I
then
can make them.
yeah, I'm looking here. I don't want to digress too much, but it said that the chat, I think it's to maybe it was disabled.
It looks like they can chat, host and panelists. Somebody try sending us a message. We'd love to hear from you.
You know,
Maybe those of you that, oh, it says that the chat's disabled, huh?
let me click on one thing right here because
Thank you.
Now I think it's live. Try it now. Yeah, there we go.
Okay, great, got it. Thanks, Brooke. Thanks, Jennifer, Fernando,
There we
Danielle.
go. Good. Yeah, good. We're learning real time, right? That's awesome. Cool. So I am not going to attempt to keep up with that. I'm going to exit out because I will lose my mind. But if you, Susan Marie, see something, you know, noteworthy, bring it to my attention. And then also we're going to be rocking and rolling with the Q&A. So if throughout the time we have together today, by the way, it didn't have an ending time, but we're going to end at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So we got 40 minutes and just lock and load, you know, get your lunch, hang out and lean in. I think this is going to be the start of something great, right? And just like anything in life, it doesn't have to be great for you to start, but you do have to start for it to be great. So today's the start, and we think that we can develop this into something great. But if you're like, yeah, I got on that MyCORE webinar and I couldn't believe it, like they didn't even have the chat feature on for like 20 minutes, whatever, never again. Okay, yeah, sorry. I don't know what you're doing right, but for the rest of us just trying to figure this damn thing out called life, we're going to keep hanging out together. Kindly dismiss yourself. Anyway, so Susan Marie, the little disclaimer there was that immersing yourself in personal development is a lot like filling up a sponge with soap and water and then filling it up with more soap and water and then more soap and water. At some point, it's saturated. It has to be wrung out on the dishes, on the counter, on the stove. So maybe you've already read enough books. Maybe you've already listened to enough podcasts. Maybe you've already been part of enough seminars. In fact, I know you have, because I believe that you're already equipped. I believe God's given you exactly what you need. He's already put the people in your life. He's orchestrated it all. So you just have to step into it. And what I'm going to share here in a moment is just a framework, right? A blueprint to say, you know what? I am enough. Everything that's happened up to this point was designed for me. And I'm not talking about a specific religious affiliation or faith. I have my faith. I'm pretty unapologetic about it. I'm talking about the human condition, the human experience. And since I'm talking to humans, I think you're going to be picking up what I'm putting down. I think you're going to already know what I'm talking about. I think you probably have fruit in your life, results, outputs, things that you can point to and say, yeah, look, my kids are doing pretty well. My health's pretty right. My bank account's not so bad. And if you're destitute and everything's jacked up, then maybe you do need to fill up your sponge. So it's not a foolproof plan. Everyone's in different places at different times. Susan Marie, are you picking up what I'm putting down?
Absolutely. And I love, actually, what some people are saying in the chat is that you have to spill out onto others in order to be able to fill up again, right? Like, I think of it as like our cups get full and it will naturally spill over onto others, which is essentially what we're doing, folks, with this webinar, right? We're here as we could have just continued on as a business, right? Nathan could have just continued on running his business. He could have continued on with a personal brand, but he's creating something here that's allowing him to spill over onto all of us, and really in doing that, allowing all of us, just like I'm seeing Eddie Peters right here, acknowledge that, yes, I am enough. Like, for more and more people to say that and step into that, who knows what could be possible.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't take it anymore. Let me dive in, because this will just give us a lot of framework, a lot of conversation to really unpack this and apply it, you know. So it's not rhetoric, it's not doctrine, it's not theory, it's living and it's breathing and it's alive and it's well, because this is a principle that shows up, I mean, moment by moment in my life, and I just feel compelled, as I shared, to share it with more people, because I've gotten this kind of cool feedback that people are like, oh my gosh, man, I can't believe I can't think the same way. Like, ever since I've seen that, I'm putting everything through this filter, this very tangible filter, and it's moving me in a different direction. I'm rethinking some things. I'm re-feeling some things. And look, I don't want to be over dramatic. You know, maybe you go, oh, that was cute, and I took some notes, or you go, whoa, this was like earth shattering for me. So I want to go ahead and dive right into that, and give it the context that I deserve, that it, or I believe that it deserves. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to really break down this value, this principle, this guiding philosophy that we call lead with who. So if you are taking notes, and look, I encourage you to do this. I kind of envision that over time, I got this idea. I don't know if you guys will like it. You can tell me if you think it's a good idea. But what I'd love to do is equip people that are really leaning into the webinar series, right, with a notebook. And I've been to a lot of things. I've been developing for years and kind of working on myself. And there's a lot of like fill in the blank, you know, there's like these almost like leading questions. So I had this idea. I said, wouldn't it be cool if we put together these notebooks, and instead of having all this like agenda in it, or like contrived message that will probably change because the world changes every week, what if it literally was just blank pages? Just like a journal that you'd get at, Barnes and Noble or order online, so that you could constantly real time be developing and growing and course correcting. So hopefully you have something like that in your life, because I have stacks of journals. They don't all have our little MyCORE branded shield on it, but I have stacks and stacks of journals that are so valuable to me, because I've constantly been a student. I've constantly been learning. I've constantly been iterating and innovating and changing and growing and developing. There's also things that I haven't changed at all. Like not a damn thing, like it's never going to change. Like never, ever, ever. I'll go to my grave, it'll be the same thing. And that's really important too, because there's so much like sensation around change and growth. No, you were already put here the way you were put here. Be that person. All right, we'll talk about that. I think it's going to be fun. So here's what I want to do. I want to bring us to this idea around the X. And at first glance, you might look at this and some things might just come to mind. For those of you that said DMX is the first thing that came to mind for me. Row, X gonna get to you. We probably grew up together in the same neighborhood. I get it. All right. I don't know if you ever made it to the country club, but I got you. Okay. But for the rest of you classy folk, you might be thinking of some other things that come to mind. I want to use the chat feature because I just want you to kind of sit with this image for a second. And I'm going to actually open up the chat, and maybe Susan Marie, you can kind of rattle off to me some of the things that people see when they see this.
Yeah, talk to us. An hourglass.
Ooh, I like that. Cool. An hourglass. What else? I'm gonna get some water because I'm yapping, but I would love to hear just sort of what comes to mind when you see this image.
X marks the spot.
Awesome.
Crossroad.
Crossroad, that's good.
Yeah, railroad crossing. Like stop, go back.
Right. That's all good.
Yeah. 4 sections. You are here. A place where you can separate things into 4 areas. The 4 quadrants of life.
Compartmentalization. I like that. Love it. Cool. So I think all of those apply. And I think what's neat about this message is it's kind of all encompassing, that you'll find areas that each of those already mentioned, visualizations and concepts apply. For the sake of this moment, I want to consider that this could mean the word experience, right? If you have a background or you're in the tech industry, you know that everything is kind of put through this lens of UX, UI, right? User experience, user interface. One of our key leaders at MyCORE is Laura Selkin. She's our Chief Experience Officer. We call her our CXO, right? So I want to just introduce this conversation around experience, because we're all having one right now in this very moment. We're having an experience, good, bad, indifferent, we're having it at all times. And I think it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to be in touch with that, right? To be aware of that, to say, hey, how's this going so far between you and me and others? And take some responsibility over it. How can I enhance this experience? How can I better this experience? Not how can I just, report on it. Just before this, we had our weekly all hands meeting. And I shared this idea, and I'll share it again in this moment, that I think in life, most people go through it as thermometers, just taking temperature, letting you know what it's like out. And I said it earlier, right? I said, I'm in Jacksonville. It's beautiful out. Let's look real time. I'll just look at this weather app on my iPhone, 81 degrees, partly sunny. I think there's another type of person, a person that develops beyond that says, I'm not just going to be a thermometer, I'm going to be a thermostat. I'm going to set the temperature. I'm going to influence the experience. I'm going to change the game. I'm going to make it happen. And by the way, these aren't binary. It's not that you are one or not one. It's that you develop through one to become one. And guess what? Just like the thermostat in your home and in mine, it also has a feature of being a thermometer. And it respects the temperature. It doesn't go crazy, right? It just might dial it up a little bit. It might take it down. It's getting a little hot. We got to go down. It's getting a little cold. We got to go up. And I think that leaders have a sense of this, right? They have this almost like 6th sense where they can kind of feel the temperature in the room. And they could say, I got to cool this down a little bit. It's getting heated. Or, hey, this is getting a little too cool, cool for school. I got to take this up. And I love the thought of water because it boils at 212 degrees, 211 degrees. It's just really hot water. You can't do shit with it. Okay. You can't do anything with it. You just have hot tea, but you can make something happen. You can get something cooking at 212 degrees. So I try to put it through this lens of the experience and saying, okay, how can I impact and affect the experience? I think this is also true in business, and it's pretty obvious in a lot of ways too, because Starbucks is a great example of this. You can love them, you can hate them, you can admit to buying them or not. I got no shame in my game. I work hard for my money. I'm gonna buy me a latte. Okay. So if you think that Starbucks is a coffee company, that's crazy. Who would ever spend $5 or $6 on coffee? Even if it is a caramel macchiato grande iced, using the dark caramel for the drizzle. I want you to know where I've gotten in my life. I'm at a place in my life now where I order different types of drizzle. I don't know what you're doing with your drizzle, but you need to get your drizzle game up. Okay. By the way, that's a major reason why people are depressed, is because their biggest problem today is which drizzle they're going to drizzle. Right? If you have real issues to solve, like you've got issues with your company, you've got challenges among your family, you're trying to help people grow, you're going to be so engaged in that process. You're going to be so invigorated by that challenge that you won't have a whole lot of time to be depressed. It'll be like the clouds. They'll come and you go, oh, that's the storm. Oh, and look, the sun's breaking up. It's not there. It doesn't not loom. You don't deny it. You just have stuff to do because you're creating the experience. You're cultivating the experience. You're not just experiencing the experience, right? So we go to Starbucks because we're getting the whole thing. We're getting the location. We're getting the smell. We're getting Michael Bublé on blast. Some of the places you can get Michael Bublé on blast. I will pay $6 to get my boy Bublé popping off. Okay. And maybe you do a meeting, maybe you just hang out and read a book, whatever it is, you're paying for that experience. Okay. So here's the thing. If you're gonna look at your company, your brand, your offering, you as a leader, you as a person, and not look at it as the way that you're providing an experience around this, a unique experience, one that's compelling, one that's intriguing, one that's thought-provoking, and one that makes people go, oh, that was different. I hung out with so-and-so today, and I've been thinking a little bit differently. Well, then you're missing it, because in the developed world, supply and demand is not what drives economics. We have too much supply. That's why places like Costco and Sam's Club can exist, because we're like, you need a 50-gallon drum of ketchup. I mean, who doesn't need a lifetime supply of ketchup to put in the garage? What? No. Grow up like me and get the free ketchup packets. Like, what are you talking about? So here's the point. We live in a world of excess. We live in a world of too much abundance, too much supply. You couldn't possibly keep up with the demand because there's too much supply. So the companies that are going to win, the leaders that are going to win, the brands that are going to expand and transcend are the ones that understand that they're providing a unique experience that is life-giving, far beyond what the product, service, or good does or provides or solves. So I think that we are required to consider the human experience, not just the client or customer experience, not even just the employee experience. That's important. And I say this, and I've said it for years now. I say, look, when we put our glasses on I like to be corny with my Ray-Bans and say, through one lens, we see the EX, through another lens, we see the CX. And it creates this single sight that says, all right, our internal team, our people here at MyCORE, your people in your organization, they should be the main event first, so that you can get that internal kind of core, get the guts right? Get that solid. And then you can cascade and ripple out into your customers and your clients and your members and, you know, your subscribers, whatever you call those that kind of keep the lights on for your business, for your calls, you know. But if you're gonna like even get, you ever get the opportunity to even touch that, to speak to that, you gotta back it up a little bit. And you got to look at the human experience, the human condition. And I think you'd agree, if you're going to look at the human experience, we got to look at the human brain, right? We've got to take a look at this operating system known as the brain. So I see a lot of chat. I want to just take a little pause, take a little breath. You know me, if I don't, I'll just get too fired up. I want to be able to communicate the message. So Susan Marie, if there's anything that you think I need to address, or are people picking up what I'm putting down so far?
Well, I can see that they were enjoying the Starbucks analogy, and that that is not just coffee, is it? And that we can all extrapolate from that to experience, right? And that's, people are just acknowledging as you were talking about, the world of excess that we live in, that's going to give us the slight edge, actually, that right there, right? This tuning in to experience. And I love how you talk about this, how you just put a bullseye around the X to look at well, I'm going to let you take us to where it's going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, so let's talk about the brain, because there's going to be two really important sections, two really important functions of the brain. Another disclaimer. By the way, I should give an entire disclaimer. This whole thing is the world according to Nathan. So if you don't dig it, that's perfectly fine. You did get on our webinar, so that's okay. Secondly, I want to speak candidly and real and from the heart, and I hope I have permission to do that. It's possible, maybe even likely, that I'll be offensive in that process. I've found that to be true. But I've also found that people have tougher skin and they can handle it. So I'd like to ask for permission to speak from the heart. Okay. And look, if at the end of our time together, I don't offend you, I want you to send me a personal email. Okay. And I'll think of something that will offend you. So anyway, that said, I can't help myself. I know I'm going to get fired up. I think I already said the S word. I'm so sorry for saying the S word. Okay. But here's the deal. The outside of our brain, this part here, known as our neocortex. The other disclaimers, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a bunch of acronyms. I didn't even finish at Penn. That's why I have a pennant, not a degree. I'm an Ivy League dropout. Okay. So that's the disclaimer. That said, the outside of our brain, known as the neocortex, this physical part of our brain, is the part of our brain that controls all of our logical thinking, all of our reasoning. It's really what keeps us at the top of the food chain. It's also, and this is very important, if you're taking notes, I encourage you, if we have to mail you a notebook with our shield on it, I will do that, but never trust a short pencil to a long-term memory. Okay, you should always take notes, because you need to come back, not because the notes are different, but because you're different. You ever read a book, read it a year later, and it's like somebody rewrote the book? Who stuck in my house and re-authored this book? No, you changed. So it pops off the page differently. Okay, so the neocortex is where our ability to speak and communicate in language, sophisticated language, comes from. This is why human beings are pretty dope. I don't know if you heard, but we're like killing the game. All right. We built this whole city. We have all this technology. We have this wonderful world. We're putting people on, the moon and sending them to Mars. We're doing some really cool stuff because of this neocortex. There's a core to the brain, which is the crown, this portion right here, known as the limbic system or the limbic brain. And this is the much more primal part of who we are. Okay, this is the part of us that our emotions are derived from. This is the part of us that we get passion from. But here's a really important component. It does not have the capacity for language. It cannot be put into words, that which we feel. Men, we are particularly bad at this, right? So here we are, we've got this conundrum where we're this walking paradox where we have this really sophisticated, really developed neocortex. Yet we have this limbic system, this core part of us. And here's where it gets really interesting. Here's the cherry on top. All decision-making, all of it, comes from the limbic system, the core, not from the neocortex. And you might say, okay, that makes sense. I've made some decisions, especially in my younger years where, they weren't super logical. They weren't logical. No. Every decision you and I have ever made is not logical. Walmart and Target, obviously Target, they don't make their money from what you put on the list. That's the logical list that you made saying, I'm going to go into the department store. I'm going to go into the place. I'm going to get these things. Then you leave with twice as much because your limbic system overrides. It takes over and it says, I need this, got to have it. And on your way to the car, you justify it, vindicate it in your brain. But the truth is the limbic system made that decision. So I want to put labels to these parts of the brain because it's helped me understand them in very simple terms. I call this outer part of the brain the what part of the brain. It's the part of our brain, again, that all the whats live in, right? The logical stuff. But here's the thing. People aren't compelled by the what. They're not moved by the what. They're moved by what's deeper than that. And if we go a layer in, because this part of the brain determines our behavior, in other words, it determines why we do what we do, then we can really start to understand this thing called life, right? This experience called being a human. And I'll prove it to you in real simple terms. If we were together physically in person, and I do envision a time where we do these types of conversations and unpack this stuff together in person. I think it'd be really, really cool and much more powerful than a 1-hour webinar. So I hope one day we're together and we're doing this, really deep dive. And if you ask me, or if I ask you, hey, what did you do to get here? No matter where you came from, you could tell me in 30 seconds, the airports that you took, the Uber that you drove, and how you arrived at the venue. 30 seconds tops. If I ask you a second question, like, hey, why did you marry your spouse? Or why'd your spouse marry you? You can't answer that question in 30 seconds, nor can I. So we end up saying things like, I knew in my heart, or I had this gut feeling. Has anyone ever heard that before or said that before? I just knew in my heart or had this gut feeling. In either direction, I knew in my heart it was wrong. I knew in my heart it was right. I knew in my gut it was right. I knew in my gut was wrong. Doesn't matter if it's right, wrong, bad, good, but that feeling is there. And we ooh and we ah and we accept. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. How cute. But let's look at that biologically. That's nonsense. The heart pumps blood through the body. The stomach digests food. I like to joke and say, if you had Chipotle on the day you were proposed to, you may want to reconsider that decision. It's changed the trajectory of your life on a gut feeling. So here's the thing. We can't express that. So what do we have? We have dance, and we have poetry, and we have punching walls, and we have MMA. What? Look, I was a college wrestler, and I can't even watch that stuff. I'm like, oh my God, the blood, right? But there's something in us. There's this fight. There's this fighter that says, I need to express myself, and I'd rather not go to jail. So we find outlets. We find ways to lead with who we are. So here's the punchline, and then let's open it up to Q&A. If you are a brand, a person, a company, a team, a pastor, a politician, whomever, and you are leading with what? I do not care how logical and pragmatic and needed your product, service, or good is. The human being, the human experience doesn't make decisions based on logic. Therefore, you're wasting your damn time. Now, some people have gotten enlightened, and there's been this huge movement to the why. And I'm not discounting it. I'm just a little weary of the why. Because I think that it's important to have a mission. It's important to have a cause. It's important to be driven. But it's not the core. It's not the anchor. So spend time there and really cultivate that. Know why you're doing something. But that will not energize you enough to sustain. You will not have a reservoir of energy to really walk it out unless you are tapping in to who you are at the core, at the center, at the crux. This has got to be an identity issue. You got to believe that this is who you were designed to be, that literally God put you on the earth to gift the rest of the world. Remember that self-awareness thing? Oh my God, did you just say that you are God's gift to earth? Literally, we all are. Right? And watch what happens when you put the X's and the O's together. I like to think of it as the love. You get this megaphone. In the same way that light shines and sound reverberates, you create this like path. So if you know me, I'm not going to tell you about what our company does. I'm not going to spend much time on why we do it. I want you to know who we are, the bedrock, the foundation, the identity, the DNA, because that's what's rippling into the why. That's what's cascading into the what. And look, how you do it matters. And when you do it and where you do it, it's all good. I just can't fit it on the slide and it would be too much. So let's just keep the main thing and lead with who and then why and then what. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down.
I tell you what, Nathan, people were really resonating with you, even asking for permission in a sense in the beginning as you go down this path to be yourself. And Ted, I like when you were talking about if you speak from the heart, it means it's truly you and not a fake person. Like, how liberating is that? Some of you may be listening to Nathan right now and thinking, like, it's liberating, right? To be around somebody who's just being it, right? Like, then it's almost like it unconsciously gives us permission to do the same. And thank you, Dan, what you were saying about that everyone's here to grow and expand their mindset. So you can't offend someone who wants to grow.
I love that. Yeah. Look, growth is not comfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. It's designed that way. So you got to get real comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I want to give one more thought, because remember, the limbic system does not have the capacity for language. Therefore, I'd be very careful if the imagery that you're using for your company is words. There's a reason we put just our shield and don't put the words MyCORE. They're nice words. I like the words MyCORE. I chose them. But I want this to transcend English. I want this to transcend time. I want this to be something that 100+ years from now, people don't see the image and think something. I want them to see it and feel anything. It doesn't even have to be good. It just has to be. So I wanted to find a way to illustrate and put imagery to this philosophy, to this message, lead with who. And we've come up with this little flag right here. And you can see it there on the back of the wall as well, in that shadow box that I got at Michael's on sale. It's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. And I want to speak to it for a second, because if you're familiar with signal flags, the way that vessels, boats, ships would communicate to each other back in the day, they had essentially an alphabet with flags, A, B, C, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie. And the signal flag for the letter N is a checkered navy blue and white flag. It's actually a square flag, like the racing flag that you'd see at NASCAR. But what's great about this kind of stylized, refined version of it is it's a reminder for us to lean into the no. Now, I pondered this for quite some time. In fact, I didn't even put an image to it. It just started on like a bar napkin and then a whiteboard. Then I put it into a Google slide. And as of this morning, it upgraded to Canva. Don't worry about it. Got you. And then, in the last few months, we've put this flag to it saying, hey, I want to be able to fly this flag. I want to be able to plant this flag, because I believe that who you are is a culmination of the things you've said no to, not the things that you've said yes to. That the things that we have the guts and the backbone and the footing to dig our heels in and say, no, 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 no. For me personally, that's been the guardrails. That's been the pathway to stepping into who I am. So I wanted that to become a reminder, and sort of within the MyCORE world and the MyCORE philosophies, we wanted to bring an image to life with this. So I hope that resonates with you. And remember, every time you say yes, you're saying no to something. If you're on this webinar and you said yes to it, you said no to something else that you could be doing. And I honor that. I respect that. I think it's really, really cool that you would invest that time. But be super intentional, because I think you'll find that your breakthrough is on the other end of the thing that you say no to next. And at first, as an early stage young CEO, I was saying yes to everything. Yes to that appointment. Yes to that hire. Yes to that partnership. Yes, 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 yes. Yes to that tool. Now, all I do is say no. Like, no, we're not doing it. Not happening. Nope. Hold the line. Give it more time. Wait. So if you're looking to reach high levels of leadership, you better get real comfortable with the word no, because it's going to be your day job to say no to stuff, to protect the house that you built, to protect the who's of your organization. Cool.
I
Are
think
people
that's
picking
what's
me up?
allowed.
Talk to me.
Yes, Nathan, I think that's what's allowed you to, as I like to say, kind of tether your philosophy to a business. And yes, we are going to talk about what that looks like. And I know that that's actually another emblem. That's the shield side of the house, and that we started off with, and we'll circle back to too, because all of you are going to be taking these philosophies and wanting to tether them to what it is that you're doing about it, in a sense. You know, what are you doing about that, who you are in the world? And I think that, Nathan, the things that you said no to have really carved the path for what you
speak to
created.
that for a quick moment, because here's the thing. The choice that we made to make this shield a coat of arms, a family crest, an identifier for MyCORE was intentional. As I mentioned earlier, it doesn't have the words on it because I don't want it to speak to the logical part. I want it to speak to the limbic part. And I'll speak to it just for a moment. The cross, as a Christian, the cross means a great deal to me naturally. I wanted to find a way to put that into application, what I really believe the cross represents, which is relationships. And as a leader, we wake up and we stand on our own 2 feet and we look up and we go, all right, let's do this thing, right? And we have everything that's been poured into us, our families, our parents, our lineage, our ethnicity, everything. And then we have those downstream of us, our children, our employees, our mentees, the next generation. And I feel a duty to pour out something better than I was filled up with, right? To refine that, to make it better generation over generation. And that's sort of my vertical self. Horizontally, I've got the people around me. I've got my peers, I've got my siblings, I've got my friends, I've got my spouse. You know, there's people that my wife, I've got to, like, eye to eye, we got to do this thing. This very moment is horizontal. I'm not coming to you saying, I know so much. I don't know a whole lot. I just know a couple of things and they're working for me. And I feel like I got to share them, and I can't just keep it internal. I got to share it with the world, and I'm not packaging it. I'm not asking you to pay for a seminar. There's no subscribe button. Don't buy my book. Don't do shit with it. I don't care. I'm just going to share with you a day in the life. And I think it might catch fire. I think people might go, wow, that's unadulterated. That's purified. That's real talk. That's real time. So that's what that cross section is about, is finding the moments when you need to be a horizontal, eye-to-eye leader. At times you need to give the answer, make the decision, be decisive, and let it ripple through the organization in a more vertical way. Okay. And the gold, it's subtle, but it's there because I think we're called to look for the good and the gold in people and in situations, right? And then the colors, America, hashtag, right? But really that shield, that we're shielding up people first and foremost. These are our values. We walk by faith, not by sight at MyCORE. We lead with who? You just saw 20, 30 minutes of that philosophy. That's like a major part of our values. And then we're not just up here philosophizing, we're measuring what matters. We're staying accountable, right? We're not up here, we're down to earth at the same time that we zoom out and make sure that we have perspective. And then our mission, our why. So that's who we are, right? The shield and the values, that's our identity. That's who we are. And then why we exist, why we're here as a company at MyCORE is to be the world's most people-centric company. And then what we do? Well, we make these things simple: bookkeeping, payroll, benefits, and HR. So we've spent almost an hour together, and I've spent 30 seconds on this. I would venture to say, if your company's not growing and breaking through and culminating and rippling and compounding, and you're not absolutely crushing it, you're leading with what? No one cares. I call it what. What. It should be an afterthought. It should be a byproduct. It should be, of course, our solutions are awesome. We're freaking awesome. Why wouldn't they be? And you're awesome. So let's find alignment. Let's run together. Let's partner. Let's collaborate. Let's do this damn thing. Okay, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I'm going to hang out a few more minutes to see if there's any Q&A, but I'm going to pass it back over to our lovely host, Chief People Officer, Susan.
Wow. I actually love hearing how you tether your philosophies down to what you're doing about it. And look, guys, you don't want to jump off before knowing the ways in which Nathan's going to continue to paint a picture of where we go together, because it doesn't just stop here. And I appreciate that, Timothy, you're saying that sometimes no means that I KNOW, that I've chosen a different path that I'm cutting into. And I think that sometimes as entrepreneurs, if that applies to you, or business owners, it can feel that way. You can feel alone, which I think is part of the creating the community here with these webinars that allow us to know that we're not alone on this journey. And I so appreciate your feedback. Cheryl, you talk the talk and walk the walk. You most certainly do, Nathan. A lot of people resonating with what you're talking about.
Very cool. Yeah, and I'll just take the final couple of minutes together to talk about next steps. Right, I mentioned right on the front end that it's not enough to just fill yourself up. You got to wring it out, right? You got to apply it. You got to put it into action. And it'd be crazy to think that in a week with 168 hours, that 1 hour would do it. That would be like if you were only sleeping 1 hour. Hey, how are you doing? Yeah, I was sleeping 1 hour, just really leaning into it. Got some good notes on my sleep. What? No, it needs to be like a lot of time, a lot of energy. There has to be a lot of investment. If you want big outputs, you got to have huge inputs. Okay, so here's what we're going to do, because the show must go on, right? We got other things going on, but we're going to start bi-weekly. So 2 weeks from now, March 15th, same time, same way in the webinar. Of course, we'll enable the chat earlier, but we're going to kind of pick up where we left off, and we're going to do another webinar. And Susan Marie will be the constant in this equation. I kind of look at her as like Oprah, right? And I'm the guest, and you guys are the audience, except you're not getting any whales or school, districts or $1 million donated to you, but maybe eventually. And we're going to unpack this idea around crossing the chasm together. If you've read The Tipping Point, or you're familiar with the law of diffusion of innovation, then you might know what I'm referencing. But if you're an innovator and or an early adopter, there's some things that have to happen for you to break through. And they're counterintuitive. They're kind of like denying the logical part of the brain that makes you want to talk about what you do, because people will suck you into it. In fact, at your next barbecue, someone's going to ask you, hey, what do you do for a living? We ask our children, what do you want to be when you grow up? What? You can't be a what. You can only be a who. Why are we even asking our kids that? We should ask them, who do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, by the way, there's a bunch of jobs that you can pay your bills with over here. Right? Not enough time to go fully into this, but that same link should be live right now. If you want to drop it into the chat, Susan Marie, I think we replaced it properly, so that same mycore.io/webinars. If you click on the register now button, you should be able to register for the March 15th webinar. So maybe you could drop that in there. It's just mycore.io/webinars. webinars.
Yeah, it's live. That's awesome.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed today and you're saying, hey, I'm gonna just book my time next week, do it. What's the ask? There absolutely is not one. Right? Like grow together, lead with who? That's what I asked you to do today. Throughout the rest of the day, just say, you know what? I got some what's I need to take care of. Great. Do them early in the morning, do them at late at night. All day, every day, you should be whoing. Your magnificent obsession should be with people, because in this year, 2023 and beyond, the companies, the leaders, the organizations that have the knack for, they understand the art of people and the science of people. Today, we talked about the science of people, right? I gave you some psychology, some biology of the brain. We're gonna keep exploring this together and find that sweet spot where you can be authentically you. Because if you've been trying to be somebody that you're not, good luck with that. I did it for some time. I literally almost killed myself. It's the absolute most taxing thing that you'll ever do. But when you're tapping into who you are, who you were designed to be, who God made you, and you step into that purpose with a strong identity, you also are going to need to know who you are not. And that's where this comes in to remind me, that's not who I am. No, no, no. So I've just so enjoyed this time together with you. Thank you, Susan Marie. I think this is going to be the start of something great.
I couldn't agree more. Nathan, thank you so much for taking us there. Folks, we look forward to sharing this journey with you in our series. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Feel free to extend the invitation to those that you care about in your life, whether it's family members, community, colleagues, clients, prospective clients, and we'll see you then. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.